Hi there. Welcome to episode 35 of the WaveBack Music Podcast. Today's episode is our second annual Winter Special. Enjoy. Hello again, this is the WaveBack Music Podcast. My name is Kris.
And I'm Vicky.
And we're here to talk to you about some of the most interesting video game music there is. Tonight we get to do something a little special. Vicky and I have put our heads together and come up with some great video game music that's in the spirit of the season. Welcome to the second annual WaveBack Winter Special. Last year at this time I was still doing the show solo, and I put together a list of tracks from some of my favorite Christmas-themed games, as well as some remixes and generally wintry songs that made me think of the holidays. This year, Vicky and I went full-on ice levels and came up with some of our favorite tracks that made us think of winter. Before we get started, since all the songs are coming from different games, we'll be discussing the artists individually around each track like we usually do. So there isn't much history to go into now. But I also wanted to point out that if you happen to get this episode directly from Geekade.com or on our YouTube channel, the art we used for this episode is from a talented artist by the name of Ken Wong, and you can see more of his art at kenart.net. So, Vicky, how are you?
I'm doing very well. I'm really excited. Oh, it started snowing, not just now, but
what?
Like it is. Yeah, it started snowing over the weekend, so
really?
You know.
We didn't get any snow down here.
Oh, well, you're a bit further south, so maybe that's why.
It's been raining all day.
Oh
like
no,
a lot.
we had snow yesterday. Like people's cars were covered.
Oh, I'm so jealous.
Are
there
you?
Isn't even any. I love snow. I love winter. I love snow, and there's not even any snow in the forecast for us down here.
Oh no.
But there was some snow. Like some of the local newscasters were talking about snow, so the grocery store was a madhouse because you know you got to get the milk and bread.
Yeah, I don't understand that.
You gotta get the French toast. You gotta make our French toast. Gotta get the milk and bread. Oh goodness. All right. Well, all right. So, like I said, we've got a bunch of wintry themed stuff. Vicky and I both picked a handful of tracks, and it's all over the map here, man. We've got stuff from all kinds of different games and some very different sounding songs. So, the first track was one that I picked, but definitely one that Vicky and I agreed on. This is a track from Animal Crossing New Leaf, a great game, and I chose 5 p.m. Winter. This is by Manaka Kataoka, who is known for Wii Fit and Smash 4 music, and Atsuko Asahi, who did Steel Diver and Pikmin 3, among other things. This track is, I love the Animal Crossing New Leaf soundtrack from top to bottom. It's great stuff. But when we first started talking about this was one of the first things that popped in my head, was just the feeling of walking around listening to Animal Crossing music during winter, you know, and you hear your footprints in the snow and whatnot, and it always makes me happy. But when I went through and started listening to the winter tracks, a lot of them are incredibly sparse, and like they're really cool. They fit so well when you're playing the game, but some of the tracks were like, well, this isn't actually very interesting. But I found 5 p.m. and I think this is one of the more interesting tracks to listen to from New Leaf. So I know, Vicky, you and I have both spent lots of time in Animal Crossing New Leaf.
Oh, I remember. It was like, I think Animal Crossing was like the first simulator game that I played, and oh, I loved it so much. When this one came out, me and all of my friends went to buy it, and we were supposed to go to the Bronx Zoo that day, and luckily we had like a 2-hour train ride to the zoo, so we were just playing Animal Crossing the whole time. It was some good times.
I distinctly remember you coming into the comic book store and the two of us trading fruit.
Oh my god, yes!
You and I definitely played this game together a long time ago when it first came out. Those were the days. All right, so let's go ahead and give our first track a listen. Here is 5 p.m. Winter from Animal Crossing New Leaf. Enjoy. All right, there is 5 p.m. from Animal Crossing New Leaf.
That song's so beautiful. It's so comfy.
It is just you can hear the footprints, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Like anytime I listen to any of this music, you can just hear all those snow footprints, and it's just the best. It's just the best. Man, I love this game.
It's too good.
It is, and this a lot of the soundtrack is this very kind of light stuff, and just those really subtle little like jingle bells that they throw in there. Just they just change the whole thing. The instrumentation and everything really just makes it feel very wintry, and it's magnificent. Animal Crossing New Leaf is a fantastic game with a really, really great soundtrack.
Oh man, now I want to play it again.
All right, then let's move on to your first track. The first track that you picked here is Zora's Domain from The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time by Koji Kondo, who is
we
Koji
all know
Kondo.
and love.
We all know and love. We know who Koji Kondo is at this point. So talk to me about this one. Why'd you pick this one?
All right, so originally it's the main theme for the like normal Zora's Domain when you're a child, but to me it's when you're an adult and you're about to go explore the ice caverns. And I don't know, it sounded like it fit more as an ice theme to me than as the water theme, because it was so like mystical.
It is very interesting that this song is used in, it's the same place, but it's two totally different circumstances, and you'd think that they would have, made a different version of the song to use there, but the song itself works perfectly, I think, in both instances, because it's got the perfect mixture of tropical and mysterious.
Yep.
And it's such an interesting piece of music, so let's go ahead and listen to it. Here's track number 2, Zora's Domain from The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time. Zora's Domain from The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time.
Yeah, it does sound very beachy.
It does. It's definitely, I feel like, taken away from, if you were listening to this and for some possible way had never played this game before, you probably wouldn't necessarily think Ice Cave when listening to it. It sounds very tropical. But having played the game, there's this unmistakable connection to the frozen Zora's Domain, like the reflection of the ice and everything. It's, I don't know, it's very interesting how that works, the association there.
Like you can see the frozen king just sitting there on this little mini waterfall.
Yeah. And it's it's got all the stylings of your tropical song. It's got the vague it's all very
that like calypso kind of drum.
Exactly, yeah. It's got some very steel drum business going on. It's got the hand percussion and whatnot in the background. But I think it's kind of those minor notes towards the end that makes it, because it's all very major at the beginning, and then towards the end before it loops, it gets to these really kind of like higher minor notes that almost it adds that sense of dread almost to it,
Mm-hmm.
you know, because there's always something just a little bit off about the Zora's Domain when you're there, and I feel like that's kind of what wraps in that whole icy nature to it a little bit. But, you know, Ocarina of Time, brilliant soundtrack, obviously a brilliant game that we all love greatly. All right, so this next one, this is a huge shift in tone from what we've been listening to previously. This next song is one of my favorite tracks from one of my favorite soundtracks on the Sega Genesis. This is the music from Sonic the Hedgehog 3, and this is Ice Cap Zone Act 1. This is an extraordinary song, very high energy, but very unmistakably cold, very icy. It's just an amazing track. I don't know who wrote this because the list of people who were listed or credited as composers for Sonic 3 is humongous. It's like 9 different people, and I haven't been able to track down who is attached to which specific tracks. But really, the Sonic the Hedgehog games, as far as I'm concerned, very clearly represent the height of Sega Genesis music. They're all so wonderfully composed, and especially the mainline game, Sonic 1, 2, 3, and Knuckles. They're so wonderfully composed, and they play to the Genesis's strengths so incredibly well. Whereas the Super Nintendo was using samples, and a lot of the music sounds very different from game to game. Sega Genesis music almost always sounds like Sega Genesis music, and I don't feel like any series of games, or any games at all, were able to really nail what the system was capable of from a sound perspective better than the Sonic games. And Sonic 3 has some of my hands-down favorite tracks in all of the series. How familiar are you with Sonic 3?
Pretty familiar. Back in when I was younger, there was like an arcade machine in my dentist's office. So I would go to the dentist all the time, and I would play Sonic on that box.
That's interesting.
I know, it's really weird. It was a way to keep me at the dentist because I hated that place. Aside
Who
from
loves
Sonic.
the dentist? Yeah, well. Are you familiar? Do you know this song off the top of your head?
No, not off the top of my head, but I'll probably remember as soon as we listen to it.
Probably, because it's really, really memorable. So, all right, here we go. Ice Cap Zone Act 1 from Sonic the Hedgehog 3. Ooh, man, I love that song. Is it getting cold in here, or is it just the music? Oh, I'm so sorry. I shouldn't be allowed to say things.
I mean, we're not making any like weird ice puns.
Not yet.
Ice to meet you.
So we're going full on Mr. Freeze from Batman and
Yeah.
Robin. Oh, God. I hate that movie. All right, back to things that I enjoy.
Yeah.
This song, so stinking good. Just for posterity's sake, the list of composers, the people that this could be are Brad Buxer, Bobby Brooks, Del Ross, Jeff Grace, Doug Grigsby III, and C. Kiroko Jones, or Michael Jackson.
Oh, I think it's Michael Jackson.
It could be. That's a whole interesting story. Is Michael Jackson's involvement in the music of this game is like still this giant mystery that's floating around. There's conflicting reports of whether or not he was involved, whether or not he actually wrote anything. It's all very interesting. But to any of those people who were involved in writing this song, thank you. It's the stage itself really involves a lot of dissension, and it's really this song kind of feels like things are going down. It just has this very downward feeling to it. But I love the drums in this one. It's got that one, the 4/4 just really kind of dance beat going on there.
Mm-hmm.
And but then it kind of has that these extra snare hits that are they're almost seemingly random. They're rather sporadic, and they fit right in between the dancey bass drums, and it adds so much to the song, that extra chunks of snare drums in there. And then once that little kind of part that when that part comes in, it just really, that kind of makes you feel the iciness to it. It's glorious.
The snowboarding section is super fun in this. I thought that was
true.
pretty cool.
Yes, and I believe this is also the stage that had there were these, I don't even know what to call them. They were like these platforms on chains, and you would spin dash into them, and when you hit them, it would like loop around upwards and bring you up to the next level, I think. Sonic 3 has some really interesting stages in it, but boy, does it have a really, really good soundtrack. And typically speaking, I feel, especially in older games, when there's this many composers, the music tends to not be all that good. I think we had this conversation back with Konami's Rocket Knight Adventures, and it's a great soundtrack, but it sounds very disconnected with itself. Whereas Sonic 3 really just kind of is spot on most of the time. But this is just a great track. So let's move on to Vicky's second pull of the night, and that would be
Cool, Cool Mountain by, once again, Koji Kondo.
That's right. And it is from the wonderful, wonderful Super Mario 64 for the Nintendo 64, because, games for N64, they have to end in 64, right?
Yep, literally the best level, in my opinion, because of penguins.
Oh, it is hard to argue that point because of penguins. I do love the penguins. I love penguins in general. I love the penguins in this game. I love the baby penguins. They're adorable.
Oh, and little lost penguin, mini side quest thing. That was precious.
That was adorable.
And the penguin race. Everything's great.
Penguin race with the fake wall that you can go through, and it's so good. I don't know that I'd say this is my favorite level in the game. I love the stage, but I don't know. Bob-omb Battlefield will always be so special to me because of, the first time I played this game and getting to that first stage, the first time you jump through that painting, and the first time you're in a Mario level that is just run any direction you want. It was just masterful. But this is another pretty radical departure. This song, if you're unfamiliar with it, it doesn't sound very similar to any of the other songs that we have listened to tonight, and yet it is still extraordinarily wintry no matter how you slice it. So here we go. Here is Cool Cool Mountain, or Snow Mountain, depending on what track listing you're looking at, by Koji Kondo from Super Mario 64. Enjoy.
So that was Cool Cool Mountain. And it really takes you back to when you were a small child or a teenager playing this game.
Or last week when I was playing the game.
Well, for me, I haven't played it since, well, I don't know, at least 10 years.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. No, I go back to Mario 64 relatively frequently.
Wow. That's awesome.
It's a really fun game. It's such an important game to me. I mean, I don't feel that it's aged extraordinarily well. I know people hold it up on a really high pedestal, but I mean, this game, man, just the whole story about this game and me getting the N64 and the unreasonable hype I had for the Nintendo 64 at the time. I mean, this game is just pure magic. It's so wonderful, and this level in particular, like you said, is really fantastic. It's walking across those bridges and the sound of Mario's feet, stomping in snow, and there's penguins everywhere, and all the different directions you can go straight off the bat. I mean, it's amazing, and it's a really good game to go back to for a number of reasons, particularly if you have it on the Wii or Wii U Virtual Console. It cleaned up the N64 games. They cleaned them up a little bit for the Virtual Console release, and it looks really, really nice. It's very sharp looking. It ages better than a lot of games from this generation, I feel. But I haven't gone back to, and actually I have never really spent much time with, is the Nintendo DS version of Super Mario 64.
I didn't know they made... Oh yeah, they did make that. I completely forgot about it.
Yeah, carrying on the tradition of ridiculously titled portable Mario ports.
Yep.
Of the it's not quite Super Mario Advance 4, Super Mario Brothers 3 ridiculous, but Super Mario 64 DS is kind of ridiculous as well. This is on the Wii U Virtual Console, by the way, the DS version, which I would really like to play just because it would inherently use an analog stick, which would be nice. And I know that the graphics were redone for the DS version to look a little sharper than the extremely blocky N64 stuff. But anyway, I'm sorry I interrupted there with my Super Mario 64 love. Go back to what you were saying.
Oh, no, I just had another, a little trivia anecdote.
Ooh, I love trivia anecdotes.
The music that is played here, as well as the music for Snowman's Land, is a Christmas-themed iteration of the cover of the Princess's Secret Slides music. A remix of the music also appears as the music for the Dream Snowball Fight event in Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Winter Games for the Wii version.
Wow.
Yep.
Ain't that something?
Sure is.
Yeah, this is. I definitely know this track has been reused a handful of times, and worthy of that too. It's a great tune. And it's the instrumentation here that really makes it again what it is. We've got the. I mentioned this on last year's winter special. The something that was used in it was the NES remix song that I used, and it was about the accordion sound, and accordion sounds in particular, I don't know, there's something about a combination of Jingle Bells and accordion that makes a very special wintry, almost carnival-y feel to it, and all the instrumentation of this is 100% happy winter stuff, and this is a very low stress level, with the exception of when you're on the sliding down.
Oh god, that was stressful.
All the rest of this stage is slower and meticulous, especially the stuff where you're holding the penguin and you're walking with the penguin. You can't really move all that fast unless you're jumping constantly. So this stage itself has a relatively slower pace, and this music fits that quite well. Well,
that's it for me. We can go on to the next song, which is one of yours.
It is indeed one of mine. It's going to sound a little odd. We're talking about Super Ghouls and Ghosts. I know we just talked about this on the Halloween Spooky Special, but when I think of ice levels, this is one of the first ones that always pops to my mind because this is a stunningly gorgeous piece of music. It is incredible. The Super Ghouls and Ghosts soundtrack is really, really, really remarkable. I can't wait to do a solid Super Ghouls and Ghosts episode one of these days because this game in particular, I mean, the franchise itself has excellent music. Super Ghouls and Ghosts is great. The Ghosts and Goblins franchise in general is great, but to my mind and to my ears, there is the best game in the series is Super Ghouls and Ghosts for the Super Nintendo, and that is in no small part to the extraordinary soundtrack done in this game by Mari Yamaguchi, who also did music for Mega Man 5 and the original Breath of Fire. This soundtrack goes all over the map because the levels themselves are so varied. But there's an ice forest in the game, which is what this track is named after, and it is such a beautiful stage. It's creepy and eerie because it's Super Ghouls and Ghosts and you're fighting monsters, but there's just an inherent beauty to this stage that is missing from a lot of the other stages because they're intentionally really ugly and scary. But boy, this stage, I remember the first time I got to it and just thinking, whoa, just being completely blown away. It takes my breath away all the time. So this track here, which we're just going to go ahead and listen to right now, Ice Forest by Mari Yamaguchi from Super Ghouls and Ghosts for the Super Nintendo Entertainment System. Enjoy. So there you have Ice Forest from Super Ghouls and Ghosts, and boy, what a complex song that is, you know?
Yeah.
It runs on such an interesting time signature, and hearing something in 5/8 time is not something that I was used to hearing in video games at this point. And this whole soundtrack has such a remarkable orchestral feel to it, and this song in particular really just pulls out that just so complex, you know? It starts off when it very, you know, in that beginning chunk there, when it's all the very harp sounding twinkly sounds, it's really difficult to nail down exactly exactly what the time signature is until the music starts coming together a bit more cohesively. And once you really start to kind of get a little bit more of a feel to that I guess horn sound that's providing the bass line for it. That doom 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 doom. Once that really starts coming, you really start to get a feel for the groove of the song, and it's just such a remarkable piece, and it's beautiful and disturbing at the same time. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's such like a weird track. I mean, well, for Ghouls and Ghosts, it's mostly spooky stuff, and you had like a tiny bit of spookiness in that. What else? I don't know. It felt like an actually a wintry track.
Yeah, it was definitely filled with that spookiness. There's lots of minor notes and stuff thrown in there to just kind of give that off-putting edge to it. But it matches the stage perfectly in that the stage itself is both beautiful and disturbing, and the music that goes along with it is just equal parts beautiful and disturbing. I adore this track so much. It is so wonderful. And one of my favorite ice tracks from any game I've ever heard. Really, possibly my favorite track of the night. It's so hard to nail it down because I love every song we're listening to tonight. So let's go ahead and move on to the next track. We're going from Super Ghouls and Ghosts to Kirby 64.
Yay!
Kirby 64, the Crystal Shards. This was Vicky's pick. Talk to me about it.
I love the Crystal Shards. It was the first Kirby where I think it's still the only Kirby where you got to combine powers, which was...
I think you're right about that, yeah.
It was so awesome. It was like my favorite thing because I think like I'm trying to remember all like one of my favorite powers. You could use ice and like I think one of the boomerang powers, and you can make like ice skates. And it was it was so cute. You could like make yourself into a rock bird or something. It was such a pleasant game.
Needle and cutter, and you would throw this Kirby would throw a piece of himself as the cutter that was covered in spikes. It was so weird.
Yeah, it was weird. But it was a pretty easy game. Sometimes I'd like to challenge myself and like make weird combinations and see if I could get through a level. Oh, my definite favorite is the refrigerator. You could turn yourself into a fridge and like spit out food so you could heal yourself.
I forgot all about that.
It was the best. It was like electricity and ice.
Oh, that's right. Man, some of those were really, really clever. I never gave this game the credit that it deserved. I'm a huge Kirby fan. I really am. I love the Kirby games. But Kirby's Adventure for NES is one of my favorites. I mean, the remake for Game Boy Advance, Nightmare in Dreamland, is simply phenomenal. I really do love Kirby games. There was something about this game. I think it was this game, Dreamland 2 and Dreamland 3 are... I think I could be very wrong about this, and I apologize if I am. But I think that these games had a different director than most of the other Kirby games, and they're kind of known for being a little bit more melancholy and more slower paced than some of the other Kirby games. And there was something about this game in particular. I mean, it worked well within the N64's graphical limitations of being very blocky, but there was something that was just so slow about moving in this game that really just... It didn't feel right to me, and I was very... I get stuck in my ways. There's no two ways about it. I'm very curmudgeonly sometimes when it comes to doing new things with my franchises, and I just remember it took me a long time to give this game a proper second shot, and when I did, I really enjoyed it. This and Dreamland 3, both are better games than I gave them credit for initially. But this song that you chose from the Shiver Star, I don't remember it very well because like I said, I never put a ton of time into this game. So I'm really interested in listening to this because this was done by Jun Ishikawa from music on the original Kirby's Dream Land and Smash Brothers for N64, and Hirokazu Ando, who did music from Kirby's Adventure, my favorite in the franchise, and Picross 3D.
I love Picross 3D.
Picross 3D is so good. If you own a DS of any flavor, get yourself some Picross games. They are worth your time. Picross is amazing, and Picross 3D is just like that much further. It's so good. But yeah, that was one piece of this game that I was never even remotely disappointed by, was the soundtrack. I mean, I remember turning on the game initially and like that weird painter kid and whatnot. There was something about the world that this game was building that was starting to feel really foreign to me. There was... this is a complete Kirby tangent right now. So Kirby's Dream Land comes out for Game Boy, and I absolutely love it. I play it to death. But it's easy as heck. And then they do Kirby's Adventure, the first sequel to a Kirby game, and that's where they introduce the getting of powers, like when you can swallow things and get powers, because you couldn't do that in the original game. And I was like, oh my god, this opens up everything. And the game was so gorgeous and animated so well for NES. Really one of the best looking NES games, particularly from a first party standpoint. The game is phenomenal. But one of the most interesting things about Kirby's Adventure was Meta Knight. Because you fight Meta Knight in the game, and it's just a one-on-one sword fight, and when you win against Meta Knight, his mask cracks, falls to the side, and he looks exactly like Kirby, except solid black, wraps himself up in his cape, and then poofs away. And then Kirby games just didn't pay attention to that going forward. It was just like, I want to know who Meta Knight is. I want an explanation. This is so interesting. And I don't know if they've fit that into the Kirby pantheon by now of who exactly Meta Knight is or what exactly he is, because I kind of stopped paying attention to the story in Kirby games at a certain point, and because I know they came out with so many of them. But by the time this rolled around, like, I'm looking at the way the characters are interacting with one another and the character designs other than Kirby himself, and I didn't really care for the way that was going with the way these other characters looked. And so yeah, Kirby 64 rubbed me the wrong way from the get-go. Tangent over. Great music. Let's listen to it so I can shut up for a minute. Here is Shiver Star from Kirby 64, The Crystal Shards.
I love that song. It sounds like a I don't know, a techno Christmas remix. Wow. Techno Christmas remix. Like, the beginning of the song is super fun and like cutesy, and then it gets like what's it like, kind of distorted in the middle.
It just sounds like Kirby music.
Does it?
It just sounds like Kirby music to me. It's Kirby music is so distinct, and I don't know. I think it's that like most Kirby music has this same kind of cadence to it, and like
that little flute or whatever that is.
Yeah, a little going on in the background. That they always have something like that going on, and it's such a very specific flavor for Kirby music, but it's so pleasant. It's so pleasant, and I know a lot of Kirby music tends to bleed together a little bit. At least for me, a lot of the music does tend to bleed together a bit outside of the original game, and there's a handful of tracks that really stick out to me, but some of this more modern stuff, like this music sounds very similar to music that I would hear in Kirby's Dream Land 2, for example, and it's not a bad thing. Like, I don't want to disparage it by any stretch of the imagination. It's just delightful. It's just delightful. I've already gone on and on enough about my love for the Kirby franchise. I love that little pink guy. So we are going to move on to Northern Hemispheres. This is probably one of the least popular tracks, the least famous tracks from the Donkey Kong Country games. This is really a great song, and it's more interesting than it gets credit for. And it goes to a great stage. This is the music that plays during Snow Barrel Blast, which is a great stage in this game that if you were like me, you got that Nintendo Power VHS tape in the mail about Donkey Kong Country before it came out. And that tape, I must have worn that thing out. I watched it over and over and over again. My hype for Donkey Kong Country was out of this world. And one of the things that they showed off in this game was Snow Barrel Blast. And the things that they pointed out are things that I probably wouldn't have noticed as much had the video not pointed them out to me. And they're really, really impressive. You start the stage, and it's on a snowy mountain. It's outdoors. It's all snow covered everywhere, but it's not snowing. And as you go through the stage, the snow starts creeping up in the background, like way in the background. And I think, if I'm remembering the number correctly, there's either, I feel like it was 12. I think there are 12 layers of snow effects going on at the same time. By the time you get to you'll hear this music start off very calm and slowly pick up. And if you're playing the stage at a normal cadence and not making any real mistakes, the music in this stage will match what you're doing incredibly well. And as the snow picks up, it'll match what's going on with the music. So by the time the music is like really, really in depth, the snow is now just covering the screen, and it's kind of difficult to see because there's so much snow going on. You're in the middle of this massive snowstorm, and it looks so impressive because of how many different layers of snow are going on at the same time, and that it's been slowly creeping towards you the whole time you're playing the stage. And then you get to the part which is just, it's so intense, and I can still do it perfectly almost every time. There's this very, very long barrel blasting segment that if you do it exactly right, you'll get a 3-up balloon at the end of it. And you have to hit every single barrel perfectly. You can't wait too long, can't wait for them to spin around in another rotation. You have to get every single one of them absolutely perfect with each hit. And if you do it right, you get a 3-up balloon at the end. And it is so cool. I love this stage. I love this game. The first Donkey Kong Country is a damn masterpiece. I have so much to say about it, but this is music by David Wise. Again, if you don't know who he is, you've probably never listened to this show before. I've gone on and on about how much I love David Wise. He's done music for the Wizards and Warriors games, Cobra Triangle, pretty much any popular old Rare game like Battletoads, David Wise has had his hand in, and he has done just the Donkey Kong Country soundtrack in particular. 1 and 2 are some of his just finest works. And this is a song that I don't think gets nearly enough credit because there's so many more catchy tunes within the Donkey Kong Country realm. This is a lot more atmospheric. So let's go ahead and listen to it. This is Northern Hemispheres by David Wise from Donkey Kong Country for the Super Nintendo Entertainment System. Enjoy. go. That's Northern Hemispheres from Donkey Kong Country. And I forgot to ask you, what's your history with this game, Vicky? I mean, I'm assuming you've played Donkey Kong Country before, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you know the level I'm talking about off the top of your head?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Also, it feels like this podcast took a very dark turn.
It certainly did. I mean, this is and the next track's not going to help either. In fact, the next two tracks aren't going to help that either. But they are very gorgeous tracks. They're just not very happy tracks.
Nope.
And it's always fun hearing music like this. One of the things I love so much about the Donkey Kong Country soundtracks is that the games themselves are so upbeat and bright and colorful, and some of the music is very anti that. You know, it really goes against its nature, but it fits so flawlessly. I don't know. It's great stuff. Now here's a better question. Have you seen the VHS tape I'm talking about?
I have not.
I am so linking you to a YouTube video of it. You're gonna lose your mind. This thing is brilliant. So that song it starts off. It's just all this ambient noise, and I know, like, by the time you get to the end of it, I don't think that you can actually hear this stuff in the stage if you're going through it the proper cadence. Like, if you're just blowing through the level and just running forward and not making too many mistakes, the level's not even long enough to hear the whole thing loop. So hearing that ending part of the song, and even still now, it sounds so foreign to me anytime I hear it come up. Because, I mean, I'll be honest with you, I don't listen to this song all that often. I do think it's an underappreciated track because it's not as melodic as a lot of the other stuff that David Wise did in Donkey Kong Country, but it is still an extraordinary piece of music. Now, speaking of extraordinary pieces of music, the next one is Vicky's last pick of the night, so why don't you tell us what it is?
First of all, everyone, you're welcome. This next song, or my final song, is Terra by Nobuo Uematsu from Final Fantasy VI. I love this song.
As do I. It's easily my favorite track in Final Fantasy VI, which is saying something because that is an extraordinary soundtrack. And it's one of my favorite songs in all of Final Fantasy. It is a gorgeous anthem. Now, what about this song in particular? I know why you picked it, but just tell everybody why you picked this one, because Terra isn't necessarily a snow character. What was it about this track that made you think that it belonged on this episode?
It's the opening theme for the game, and it sets you up for like this whole, like the whole sequence of events. When you first start out, you are in, what are those machines called? The things you ride in. And
wow, why can't I remember that?
I don't know. It's ridiculous.
Magitech armor. Jesus criminy.
Right?
How did I forget that?
I don't know. And I was just playing Final Fantasy 15. They have it in that too. Anyway. So it's like the opening in the game, and you first start out and it's like really tragic and snowing.
Yeah, it's like it's a behind the back view of the Magitech armors walking in the snow. And it's like, it's been so long since I played this. Do you know that Terra's in one of them by that point? And it's like that's after the cliffside scene, right? Mm-hmm. So you know that she's in one, and you know that she doesn't necessarily have control over herself.
Yes.
But yeah, just the three of them trudging through this vicious looking snowstorm. Mm-hmm. And this music is so sad and so gorgeous. This song is a damn masterpiece. I'm
excited to listen to it. So why don't
Let's just go ahead.
Yep.
Here is Terra from Final Fantasy VI by Nobuo Uematsu.
And that was Terra's theme from Final Fantasy VI. I have actually listened to this a lot. I have a Final Fantasy playlist that I listen to on my way to work, to and from. It is also my relaxing music.
This is definitely a relaxing tune.
I don't know. I loved Final Fantasy VI. I honestly think it was my favorite Final Fantasy.
It's definitely mine.
Terra was just such an awesome character. And, I mean, Kafka wasn't, like, the best villain, but...
Oh, I think Kafka was one of the best villains.
Really? I loved his theme.
Just awful. It wasn't like... There was nothing... No tragic backstory. He was just an awful person. He was just terrible. I don't want to walk around this village, so poison the water supply and murder everyone so I can walk through unencumbered. Like, this guy was just evil. And I loved that about him. Like, he was hideous. He had that horrible laugh. And it was just, there was no liking this character. There was no, like, Sephiroth, for example, is one of those characters that had, like, identifiable traits, and you could look at him and say, like, I almost understand his perspective, or something like that. Kefka was just terrible.
He was just a clown.
He was a horrible clown beginning to end. He had no redeeming qualities. You never felt bad for him. He was just awful, and I loved that about him. I just loved that they were so brazen about him being pure villainy. And, I mean, he murdered a town so he wouldn't have to walk around it.
He is a human trash fire.
That is brutal. I love Kafka. I love him as a villain. And Final Fantasy VI is such an amazing game. The way characters, like, go away and then come back later, and it weaves in and out of itself. It's an amazing soundtrack. It's a great story. Final Fantasy VI is great. And this song, I mean, Squaresoft at the time, they really knew how to get a tremendous performance out of the Super Nintendo. To a visual standpoint, to a certain extent. I mean, Final Fantasy II was impressive at the time in a lot of ways, but there was also a lot of stuff about RPGs at the time that were kind of ugly to me. But Final Fantasy VI, the expression that they were able to get out of these little tiny sprites was incredible. But not only that, but the music, it sounds so orchestral. They did such a wonderful job of using the best possible samples to make this music sound as interesting as it does. I mean, that flute sound, I guess it's a flute, right? It would have to be a flute.
Yeah.
That's the main driving melody of this, is so sad. It's just dripping with melancholy. It's ridiculous. And it does feel cold. Like, there's, in my mind, there is absolutely no separating this song from the image of the back of those Magitech armors walking through that snowstorm. It's just, they're inextricably linked. There's no way to separate them, because I'll never forget the first time I rented the game from my local video store. I brought it home, I popped it in, and I didn't care much for turn-based RPGs at the time, and I remember being very disappointed the first time I played Final Fantasy III because I was hoping it wasn't like that, because I didn't know what I was I didn't know anything about Final Fantasy besides the first one and the second one, because this was Final Fantasy III when it first came to America, and I was hoping that there was more action to it. And it wasn't until Chrono Trigger that I really started to understand and really appreciate turn-based RPGs, and when I went back to play Final Fantasy III/6, I was blown away by it. But I remember renting it and getting through that whole intro sequence and just being just so mesmerized by the story that they were setting up. And once they got to that point where they're walking and you see the credits rolling and just a little credit titles coming up on the screen, and the snowstorm just looks vicious and everything is very somber. And this music was just haunting, absolutely haunting. And it stuck with me as one of my favorite pieces of music from any Final Fantasy game. And it's just a remarkable track.
Thank you for that, Kris.
You're welcome.
I can't add any more to that.
Okay.
So let's go to the next track.
Yes, let's move on to the next one. All right. We're going a little bit long here, but we'll see what we can get through. This next track is again, it's not as melancholy as the Terra's theme that we just listened to. This track is Phendrana Drifts by Kenji Yamamoto, who did music from Punch-Out and Super Metroid, and this is of course from Metroid Prime. One of my favorite ice stages that I've ever seen in any video game ever is Phendrana Drifts. What's your experience with Metroid Prime?
Wait, Prime was the first one, right?
It was the first 3D one on the GameCube, yes.
Oh! Yes, I played that one.
Gotcha.
I don't think I fully beat it. So I played it when it first came out, and I don't remember much of it. So I am sorry I know, I'm sorry.
That is okay. This area in the game is, when you first walk out in Phendrana Drifts, is still one of those really all-time memorable moments for me. Metroid Prime in particular is a masterpiece on so many levels, and I fell in love with this game very quickly after it had come out. And boy, when I think I was just beyond officially sold on this game when I got to Phendrana Drifts, because you get there and you just walk into this giant snow-covered area that is so stunningly gorgeous, and seeing Metroid Prime was technically the kind of the fourth game in the series, and none of the other games had an area that was like this. You had never seen Samus just walk out into a snow area, and the contrast of Samus's orange and yellow and red against the blues and whites of a snow area were really just gorgeous. And this area had so many neat, like, ruined buildings in it, and the baby Sheegoth monsters that walked around, these like really cool little monster guys that would just hang out in balls of snow, and then they'd get up and you'd have to like swing around their backs and blow up their ice domes that they had on their backs. And I always felt bad for killing them, because we scanned them, they're baby Sheegoths, so they're babies, but they're attacking you, they're trying to kill you, so it's very, very self-defensy. But this whole area is amazing, and this piece of music is gorgeous. It is let's just listen to it. So here we go. We're moving on to track number, what track are we on?
9.
9. Okay, Kenji Yamamoto, Phendrana Drifts, Metroid Prime, track number 9. Enjoy. right, and that is Phendrana Drifts, or Ice Valley, from Metroid Prime. And Vicky, what'd you think of that one?
It sounded more like an underwater level to me.
Really?
A little bit. There was like
I get that. Yeah, actually, I do get that. Obviously, it's such a disconnect for me because it's so linked to this level for me. But yeah, I get that.
What else? But then it started to sound more like snow with the high piano notes. Mm-hmm. That's usually what snow sounds like.
This sounds like falling pianos. Wait,
Yep.
That's not right. No, it's a very, very cold song.
Yep.
Very, very cold. And
it sounds
very
windy.
Cold and desolate. Yeah. That's neat because it's like it's not actually a wind effect. It's just kind of that weird droning effect, but it sounds like wind and it sounds like snow. It's a very peaceful song too, which is considering what happens in this area, the action that you go through, all the fighting of the baby she-goth monsters and whatnot. It is very interesting that this is such a peaceful piece of music, but it is really, really nice. And I love the Metroid Prime soundtrack, the way it's got that some more classical instruments, but it's also most of the percussion is very techy sounding. Like it sounds very, very technology-ish.
Yeah.
Not that that's a word, but you know what I mean. It's really interesting, and what a good track. What a great soundtrack, and I love that they got Kenji Yamamoto to do this because Metroid Prime was primarily developed by an American studio, Retro Studios, and Kenji Yamamoto is just old school Nintendo talent, and it was so great to have his take on this music again. It's just wonderful stuff. Great soundtrack. What an amazing game. So, all right, let's move on to our last regular track of the night. I'm going to play us out with something ridiculous after this, but
exciting.
Yeah, it is quite exciting. Believe me, it is. Next track that we're going to listen to is Vanilla Lake from Super Mario Kart by one of my all-time favorites, Soyo Oka, who did just so much great stuff on the Super Nintendo, like Wario's Woods and Mario All-Stars and Pilot Wings and Sim City. And Soyo Oka is great. She is a wonderful composer. I wish she was still making music for Nintendo. But Vanilla Lake from Super Mario Kart, it's the ice level in Super Mario Kart, and there's nothing not to love. So we're running a little long, so let's jump right in. Here is track number 10, Vanilla Lake from Super Mario Kart. There you go. Talk about contrast. That is so different from the last couple of tracks we listened to. But I wanted to leave us on from actual game music something a little bit more joyous because I love that song. It's so great. That little, it's got such a nice little,
cute
relatively
little twinkling sound. It's so
it's
cute.
Very twinkling. Yeah, it's very layered. It's ever so slightly complex. In just the right ways, and the little tiny touches of strings that they throw in there, that do 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 do. It is brilliant. It's such a brilliant and joyous little piece of music. I mean, you've heard me talk about how much I love the Super Mario Kart soundtrack. Our Mario Kart episode was so much fun. The Super Nintendo Mario Kart soundtrack is great stuff. Can't wait to do an episode of that one day.
Mario Kart I haven't played in a long time, so I don't remember. Wait, let me check. Hold on, I'll pull up a picture really quick so I can remember it. Mario Kart, Vanilla Lake. Oh, yes. Yes, this
It's
guy.
definitely a stage that I really would love to see them, because they do the retro courses in all the newer games. I would love to see a proper 3D take on this course, because this course had those blocks of ice that you would have to smash through. Like, there were just this wall of ice, and everybody would run into it, and just whoever would break through it first
How
was
stressful.
like the one who would clear the path. It was a really interesting wrinkle in getting everyone around the course, and it was really great stuff. But I love this track. I love this track so much. So anyway, all right, let's finish things off with this is a track that I played on last year's show, and I gotta play it again. I'll probably play it every year because it is hands down my absolute favorite piece of Christmas music ever put together. This is called Super Mario Sleigh Ride by the One Ups, which is a fantastic, jazz-ish band that does great covers of video game music. And this is a mashup of classic Christmas music, particularly Sleigh Ride, and Mario music. And it is brilliant. Are you familiar with this track?
No, I am not.
Oh, well, you are in for a treat. Here it is, Super Mario Sleigh Ride, my all-time favorite piece of Christmas music. Enjoy.
That was cute.
Yay!
That was so cute.
Oh, it's so brilliant. It's mostly Super Mario World music, and I love how everything just matches so well. Like the even the weird music, like the bit from the Forest of Illusion that's playing in there, and once they get to the Donut Plains map, oh, it's and they start combining that with all the other. This is so good. It is so good. I could go on. I love every single time. This is one of the first songs I listen to when I bust out my Christmas music. I have a specific Christmas playlist that I listen to of. Obviously, I like listening to the classics, but I also have a handful of songs that I love to listen to, and I did the majority of them on the the show last year with stuff from like Christmas Nights and Christmas Lemmings and NES Remix. Go back and listen to last year's holiday special if you really winter special. That's it, the WaveBack Winter Special 1. Go back and listen to it. It's one of my favorite episodes that I did solo before Vicky joined, and it's so much good stuff. I love that song. I love it so much. I love this season too. I love this time of year. It always makes me happy, no matter how much stress I got going on. Gotta just love the holiday season. Love my tree. Love my lights. Love my music. So, any final words before we call it a night?
No, I think that's it for me.
Okay, cool. Well, in that case, that is our show. Tune in next time as we listen to some of the extraordinarily catchy music of the Wii masterpiece, the underplayed and underappreciated masterpiece, Rhythm Heaven Fever. As always, we would love to hear everyone's thoughts and memories on these games, and you can do so on the WaveBack Facebook page. You can just search for WaveBack on Facebook, and you'll find out more information on our next games, as well as a nice, convenient place to talk about them. You can always, of course, send us an email at mail@geekade.com, and while you're at it, check out all our social media channels, which you should totally follow, like, or subscribe to if you haven't already, and be sure to check out all the other great content we have on our site over at geekade.com. Vicky, you also write for another website, which is
justrpg.com. I write articles and I do a podcast over there too.
It is good stuff. Make sure you check it out. So that's going to be it for us. Happy holidays, everybody. Thanks again for listening, and good night.
Good night. Happy holidays.